This episode of Bright Hearth is brought to you by Indigo Sundry Soap Company, Backwards Planning Financial, Keepwise Partners, Gray Toad Tallow, Live Oak Integrative Health, the Kings Ridge Elderberries, A Well-Worn Story, and by our supporters at patreon.com. In his Areopagitica, John Milton wrote, quote, "A good book is the precious lifeblood of a master spirit, embalmed and treasured up on purpose to a life beyond life," end quote. His point was that a great book captured the essence of a great mind, making it accessible to all who would take up and read. Without books, how would we know the genius of Augustine and his search for the city of God? The bright lights of Dante, Pascal, MacDonald, O'Connor, Bunyan, and Tolkien would be long darkened without this gift. But not only would we fail to know these great men and their minds, without books we would fail to know ourselves. In an experiment in criticism, C.S. Lewis made this point, quote, "But in reading great literature, I become 1,000 men and yet remain myself. Like the night sky in the Greek poem, I see with a myriad eyes, but it is still I who see. Here, as in worship, in love, in moral action, and in knowing, I transcend myself, and am never more myself than when I do," end quote. Join us in this episode of Bright Hearth as we walk through our 2024 reading and look ahead to 2025.
Welcome back to Bright Hearth 2025. We are here to finally talk about books. Wrangled Brian into it.
Can you sing more?
No.
That was good.
No.
That was really good.
That was it for the year, guys.
The people haven't heard your voice since December 16th in Bright
Sad
Hearth.
for them.
But they got the peak
So
first.
good. Well, because remember, they're not watching me. They don't know. I don't know they're listening to this.
Yeah, Lex. I found out at dinner tonight. Lexi has not realized this whole time that people were listening to this.
No, that's not true.
She just thought we were hanging out, and I like.
It would be way more
interviews.
awkward if I thought about it the entire time.
Man,
So,
well, good to be back with you, babe. And what are we
are.
what are we talking about here in January?
books. All the
Books. Lexi's favorite topic.
I'm wondering, did you have people texting you all day about books yesterday? Or is it just me?
I had 0 people text me about books. Not even all day.
I know who my reading friends
What
are.
do you mean text you all day about books?
I just know who my book nerd friends are because I know we're all doing the same thing.
Do you mean text you like, what was your list?
No, more like,
Or your
hey, do you have
review?
a book on these like 3 specific topics?
Oh, they were setting their reading goals.
Correct. And they're not telling me that's what they're doing, but I know what they're doing because
But
I'm
you
doing
know.
the same thing.
Yeah, I just,
Which
I
I just remembered I have to text someone back about.
most of the gifts I got for Christmas were books, so they're good books too. For most of them, most of them
Wouldn't have start
banned
out with
in
a
various
banger, huh?
countries. Nah, we'll take it. This is babe. I'm in the
No
passenger
drama
seat.
podcast.
Usually, I'm a man. Usually, I'm driving.
Well,
But here we are. I'm in the passenger
I
seat
won't
for this episode,
chastise you about
and Lexi is taking
your
us
lack of
into
love
the
for
world.
book notes.
I love books. what did you say? The book notes?
Yeah, like book marginalia.
I don't do that.
You don't care about it enough to like keep detailed notes on things to share with people,
No,
or you don't care to read other people's things, or
I would be a better man if I did.
if there was an
But I don't.
entire genre, maybe someone should start this, of just podcasts dedicated to authors sharing their favorite books. Oh my gosh, that's like,
You would like that?
oh, so much.
I would only be mildly
Maybe that
interested.
exists out there. Someone tell me if that exists.
I'm sure it exists.
It probably exists.
Probably does.
Anyways, we're just going to go through some books tonight. So the first question I have for you is, did you set any reading goals at all for 2024?
No, I didn't have any formal like number or anything like that. I just read and listened to books that I wanted to. I did the Ron Swanson method.
Okay.
I read books that I wanted to read when I wanted to read them. And then I listened to books that I wanted to listen to when I wanted to listen to them.
You know, the average person, if they took that advice, would not read very much.
That is sad. I wanted to read many books and did, and wanted to listen to many books and did. So it was a good year, but I haven't really set. I did set a very mild goal for this year, but it was not.
We're not there yet.
I know we're not there yet. I'm
Not there
foreshadowing.
yet.
I'm foreshadowing.
Okay.
I'm like a master fiction writer
Sometimes
right
in the
now.
past you've set goals, but
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
they're probably like man goals, like number of books. I would never
was the last
in my
big.
life set a number goal.
after the 200 book year, I have not set another reading goal of that kind because that made me, it kind of broke me. I was reading a book every like 2.1 days.
You were, yeah, it was crazy.
More than that. It was like every 1.8.
How many books did you read this year?
I didn't write them down. I don't know.
What? How are we going to discuss?
I have a list of books that I thought through from some of the questions you sent me, but I didn't keep a list.
Wow. Okay.
The thing is that one of the big differences,
Do you
dear
not use
listeners.
Goodreads?
No, I don't. Our Haunted Cosmos book is finally on Goodreads, so if you like it, go rate it.
I'll finish it
See if
later
you can find
tonight.
it.
So tonight, when I finish it, I'm 9 pages away. Wife fail. I wanted it to be the last book I finished last year, and it didn't happen.
It's okay. One of the books that I'm going to talk about in my 2024, I didn't finish till.
Oh, you're violating so many of my rules right
this
now.
This is the thing, guys. You have to understand this. Lexi and I are so different when it comes to literally everything. And it doesn't bother us that we're different.
No,
we laugh about it. But we are completely different. Like we like, it's funny because we like a lot of the same genres of things.
Yeah.
But the way we like them is so different. I can't even get into her mind sometimes and go, how would you enjoy like writing in the margins of a book? I almost like I did it in high school because I thought it was cool, but I never wanted to.
I'm reading that critical text of the Westminster Confession right now. That Zachary Garris that we use.
Yeah.
I found it, tracked it down. I'm reading it right now. It's interesting, very boring. There's one page of footnotes that I skipped, and I'm really like having moral dilemma about when I finish this book, will I be able to put it? I skipped the one page. Is it going on my reading list or not?
Just go read the one page if you're that worried about it.
I know. That's what I need to go do.
That is really
That's
funny.
shows.
I reread books. I'm a chronic rereader.
I'm rereading more books.
Honestly, if I had to put my favorite fiction this year, it would be one of my...
Hey, we're not there yet. Slow down.
It'd be one of my old favorite fictions.
Okay, shh.
She's shushing me. You guys, this is the first time you've ever heard me shushed on Bright Hearth.
You had no reading goals. You set a very... that's actually a good method in some ways. Set low standards so you're not disappointed, right? Right, babe? Is that your approach to books right now?
No, my standards are I read what I want to read.
Okay.
That's my standard. And sometimes I have to read things that like I have to make myself want to read something that is specifically needful for something I'm doing, and it's not like necessarily what I would pick first. But very rarely do I read a book because I'm like that's not a book I want. There's just so many good books out there that I want to read. That why would I don't know. Why would I not just read them?
Okay.
That's what I do.
All right. Well, I guess we can talk about your books now.
Let's talk about both of our books.
Okay. So did you have a favorite history?
Favorite history book. Let me pull up my notes here. So I had a couple.
Okay.
Can I talk about all of them?
Yeah. Yes. The more the better. This type of thing.
One sec. Okay. This is not my favorite one, but I liked it quite a bit. And it is a history book. It's called Conquerors: How Portugal Forged the First Global Empire by Roger Crowley. And it is a very interesting book.
It's very
of exploration.
Niche, I feel like.
Well, we haven't actually talked about this, but one of yet. But the New Christendom Press conference that's coming up.
Oh.
In June. One of the big themes of the conference. I literally don't know that we've announced this anywhere. But I'm just going to break the news anyway. One of the big themes we're exploring and shaping the conference around is like the spirit of the age of exploration. Last year's conference was shaped around the spirit of King Alfred and his localism, like his networked borough system in fortifying and reclaiming the Anglo-Saxon world against the Viking invasion. That was last year's New Christendom Press conference. This year, we're talking about courage and risk and bold leadership. And so we've been reading and thinking through different books, like Endurance is an example of this. But the Portuguese, it turns out, I didn't know this, but they were absolutely insane when it came to the just sailing into the unknown. Like they would send armadas of ships trying to find a way around like Cape Horn and different... I won't bore you with the details, but sea routes to different places to get around Muslim forces and try to find trade routes and that would benefit their nation. And it's just such an audacious tale. Like, they would send ships out and lose 70% of the ships. 30% would come crawling back like 2 years later. And this whole time they didn't know what was happening to them. They would come back and then they would just send out a whole nother way. They'd be like, this is what we found. This is as far as we got. They would leave statues that marked as far as they got on the coast of various places that they discovered. And it's just a fascinating book. It affects a lot of our modern world, but not many people are even aware of the Portuguese. They're not aware of like what they accomplished. And I thought it was just fascinating. So that's one of my big
That is
history
interesting books. Because of Columbus. I mean, I don't know what the time period was.
Columbus is in the same, he's in the book too.
He is, okay.
But he shows up kind of as a rival to
the people you were reading about.
Like Vasco da Gama and different
interesting
Portuguese explorers. They were also brutal. Like, they would just absolutely, they had superior military technology in a lot of ways, so they would just cannonade, like fire on these like Muslim trading outposts if they were mistreated, and just like go all out to war with these people.
So was it focused specifically on their endeavors to defeat the Muslims, or just exploration in general? Does that make sense?
It was kind of both.
Okay.
The Muslim question played into it a lot because that was
everywhere that time.
Yeah, they wouldn't have had to do some of what they did if not for the Muslim issue.
Was that mostly pirate behavior? Like, or was it on land?
It was, a lot of it was on ships, but some of it was also in ports.
Okay.
Like, one of the other things they were doing was searching for Prester John. Have you ever heard of Prester John?
No.
One sec. Attention business owners. Proverbs tells us, in the multitude of counselors, there is victory. At KeepWise Partners, we aim to apply this principle to your business as you work to build Christendom in your labors. Running a small business is challenging, but you don't have to go it alone. KeepWise Partners offers expert bookkeeping services with the care and integrity you'd expect from a partner who shares your values. And to take it a step further, our advisory services bring invaluable insights to you as you aim to meet your business goals. Visit keepwisepartners.com or call Derrick Taylor at 781-680-8000 to schedule a free consultation. KeepWise Partners, bringing finance and accounting excellence to the way you build your business. Are you tired of not feeling well and of having your doctor treat your symptoms without taking the time to investigate what's really going on? Rebecca Belch at Live Oak Integrative Health is here to help. Rebecca is passionate about helping women and families achieve the health that God designed in our bodies to have. With more than 20 years of experience as a critical care and labor and delivery nurse, she now serves as a licensed practitioner of functional medicine. Her goal is to address the root causes of dysfunction in your body and to help give your body what it needs so that you can create a legacy of health that extends to your children and grandchildren. She provides a wide range of testing options to uncover your underlying health issues, such as fatigue, weight gain, and gut problems. Then she works with you to develop a plan that focuses on nutrition, hormone balance, and long-term habits to promote enduring health. She also specializes in health for women who will become or currently are pregnant. This time is often overlooked and is the most important window to create generational health. Check out her website to book a free discovery call right now and get a $50 discount on any of her service options. You can do this on her website, liveoakintegrativehealth.com. Hey friends, let's talk about Gray Toad Tallow. They're a family-owned small business dedicated to making products that nourish your skin with the purest, most wholesome ingredients. For centuries, people have experienced the moisturizing and healing properties of tallow, and Gray Toad Tallow is committed to sharing these benefits their family has experienced with you. Besides their commitment to offering you a healthy skincare option for your family, Gray Toad Tallow's desire is to remain affordable and accessible to be a blessing to others. For more information and to try a balm sample pack, visit graytoadtallow.com. That link will be in the description along with this code, which we would urge you not to forget to use for 15% off your order. That code is all caps, BRIGHT15, BRIGHT15 for 15% off your order and we truly appreciate your business. If you have a young family like me, you work hard every day to ensure you care for your wife and kids. Providing for a young family is challenging with rising costs, and it doesn't look like things are going to change in the future. Maybe you've thought like I have, I wish I'd started investing years ago. My family would be in a better financial position. As they say about trees, the best time to plant a tree was 10 years ago. The second best time is today. Don't let the benefit of time go to waste on your financial planning for retirement or inheritance for your generations. Joe Garrissey with Backwards Planning Financial has been working with us to make the best plan for our family. He's a Christian who works with one of the largest and most trusted financial service companies in the world. He's been helping Lexi and I work towards our financial goals and helps us navigate the complexities of the markets. Whether you have millions in assets or you're just starting to invest, Joe Garrissey can help you reach your goals to grow the kingdom and leave a good legacy for your generations. Visit backwardsplanningfinancial.com. That's backwardsplanningfinancial.com. Or call 615-767-2555 to speak with Joe to prepare for the future. The testimonials presented may not be representative of the experience of other clients and are not a guarantee of future performance or success. Okay, so Prester John, I'm just going to read the Wikipedia actually has a pretty good summary here. It says, Prester John was a mythical Christian patriarch, presbyter, and king. Stories popular in Europe in the 12th to 17th centuries told of a Nestorian patriarch and king who was said to rule over a Christian nation lost amid the pagans and Muslims in the Orient.
Interesting.
And so they would...
So it was probably definitely real then.
They imagined him to live in India and then later like other places. But they were constantly searching for him, and he was supposedly like rich beyond imagination.
So like Saint Germain type behavior.
Kind of, but like ruling this mythical like Christian utopia.
Interesting. Okay.
So one of the things they were in search of a lot of the time was trying to find Prester John. What it actually, I really want to do a Haunted Cosmos on Prester John.
Yeah, he sounds interesting.
So I think actually I'm pretty sure Ben and I will at some point do a whole thing on Prester John.
Has Ben read this book?
No, Eric and I have both read it.
Okay.
So that's one of my history books. What about you?
I actually didn't read a lot of outright history books. I think the only one that I read, which was really good, was I did read Honor Thy Fathers. Mm-hmm. And that was the last book I finished of the year. Nice. Because I listened to Eric's interview with Pastor Madden on productive households, and they had mentioned multiple resources in there on like Puritan thought on productive households and home economies. And so I asked him where would be a good place to start on that. And he said, honestly, if you just go read Honor Thy Fathers, it would lead you to other resources. So
yes,
that's as deep as I've gotten so far, was finishing that book, but it was really good. I liked it a lot. I mean, and it's
very clear. It's
very clear and just a good, honestly, I was so ticked off reading the stuff about the Kellers.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was a good historical look at just, I don't know, it just makes you feel like you're not, like we're not the weird ones today.
Right.
Everyone else is the weird ones.
Yeah, with our patriarchal view that everyone says is like crazy and extremist.
Yeah.
Like, well, actually, just this is what all of the Reformed
and it genuinely
Christians
was helpful to see how people like the Kellers and who's the other guy? DeYoung?
Like the Gospel Coalition type of guys.
Yeah. Not that they weren't necessarily trying to be underhanded. It's just that I don't think people were digging truly deep. Like the average Christian was not following them deeply enough. I was really impressed with the amount of research and the amount of like listening to different interviews he had to do, just like really random stuff that it really did change a lot of culture over the last 20 years.
Yeah. They were very subversive.
Yeah.
One of the I mean, I think this
especially that Kathy man.
I know. I do think that the Keller era of the PCA is ending. And I hope that this is a true prediction, but I believe the PCA is at least somewhat likely to head in a more conservative direction in the near future. So I'm hoping that that's true and that the PCA wins against some of this stuff. But it is in there. And Keller definitely, he did hit a number on the PCA and he did a number on Reformed Christendom. TGC did as well. Where is that book available from? Who published
New
that?
Christendom Press.
Did they really?
Yeah.
Is that hot new publisher I keep hearing about?
That's great.
Wow.
That's great. So that's kind of the only true history. I mean, everything could be fit into history somehow.
Yeah,
but
I actually had a hard time splitting mine up because a lot of the nonfiction that I read was
history this year.
Either history or political writing that was related to history. So it's kind of hard. Like I would say that the other history book that I read that's just pure history, not really political, was The History of the English Peoples by Paul Johnson, which was fascinating. And it's a big overview, and it's Paul Johnson. So it's not like, it's very conversational writing, super readable. He wrote The History of the American Peoples. I think you've read that.
I'm reading his book Modern Times this year.
Yes, good book. There was a couple books of his that I've read I thought all of them were solid.
Didn't he write an entire book about the Jews?
I think he wrote a history of the Jews.
Yeah, he
Jewish
does.
peoples.
He has.
Yeah, he's written a lot of books along that vein, and he's also written like there was a book I read by him on famous, basically thinkers that shaped the modern world.
Is that where you read the Tolstoy?
Yes, it's why I think Tolstoy's a bad person.
Yeah, most of the people in that.
They were pretty much all bad people.
What were they called?
Not all.
Was it
of them.
Intellectuals?
Intellectuals. Paul Johnson. Yes, I read that one like in 2020. I think it was 23
I have his
when I read
History of the Reformation.
Haven't read that one.
Somewhere around here.
I like him because he's very clear. Ooh, it's late, guys.
Christian?
It's like 6:30.
It is not late.
It's 6:30 p.m. I'm yawning.
Let's see. I have my laptop in front of me, which is super weird.
He's knowledgeable on Christian stuff. It makes me think he's a Christian of some sort.
That's what I was going to Google. Is he a Christian?
One thing that was very interesting from history of the English peoples that I had underestimated the effect that what are they called?
Catholic, so that makes sense.
He's Catholic. Yeah, that makes total sense. I underestimated the degree to which the early English peoples were influenced by Pelagianism. So the British church from the beginning was very Pelagian, and that deeply affected their culture for a long time.
Can you give an
example? That was interesting. I mean, it's hard to think of a direct example, but he gives many of just ways that Pelagianism shaped their thinking and political ethos. They were very much, because Pelagians are like absolute free will type of. Okay. Pelagianism is actually a heresy. I mean, it's the idea that man is not born corrupted by original sin. Okay. Essentially. So he can turn, towards good or bad, basically. He's not corrupted by original sin. And that affected the politics of the Christian church in England as well as their ethos.
Yeah, I could actually totally see that.
Yeah, it was also interesting to me the degree to which he made this point many times that to the British mind, throughout their history, they have a high degree of respect for law, custom, and tradition. Mm-hmm. And so if a new ruler wanted to make a genuine improvement to things, like let's say that they had some law that they wanted to change, and let's just assume it was actually the change was a good idea. Mm-hmm. Like it was real progress towards justice. The ruler or the legislator or the judge or whoever it was would need to frame the new law as if it had been what they'd always believed and had been corrupted in the past. So they were always searching for this sort of almost quasi-mythical, golden old period.
See that
at all times. So if a ruler wanted to make some change progressively, they had to like recast it as the rediscovery of something older.
That's interesting.
So there's a lot of things like that just about, and I lived in England for a few years. I really like British history. That was interesting.
Did you listen to that on Audible? Or did you read that physically?
I listened to that.
Okay. So I can listen to it is what I'm saying.
Yes, we have it on Audible. Okay. I like to listen to history and fiction and read nonfiction.
So I don't know.
Do you have any more history books that you read? Or, so that was it?
No, I mean, I did some more medical history stuff. Like I reread God's Hotel, and then I read The Moth and the Iron Lung.
The one book you read, was that the one that was available at newchristendompress.com/fathers?
I guess. I don't know.
Okay, I just want to just double check. I think I heard that one's still available in the premium hardcover edition. So that's just really interesting that you bring that up.
Okay. next genre. What was it? What was your favorite fiction from the year?
I have a really hard time coming up with an answer.
Can't be Clancy.
I have a hard time coming up with this because all my favorite fiction that are very memorable from the year I've read in previous years.
Okay, so?
Like Pride and Prejudice.
Did you read it again this year?
Probably 4 times.
Are you serious?
No, yeah, I'm 100% serious. Yeah, that was probably my favorite. I mean, there's other ones that I listened, like there were some workout books that I've listened to that are not.
What do you mean workout?
Like
fiction?
Workout books that are like books I'd listen to while working out.
Oh, okay.
Not books on working out.
Okay, like
what I do, guys, is I lay in bed and I eat potato chips while I listen to workout books.
I would not lay in bed and do that, but I would
No,
listen
I'm
to
just
workout
kidding.
books.
You know, so I listened to the Terminal List series this year, which is like it's a modern like military thriller fiction. It's not sophisticated in any sense.
Okay.
It's the kind of book you listen to while you are deadlifting.
Okay.
There you go. But really, Pride and Prejudice was probably my favorite book of the year in terms of fiction. Followed by there's this obscure book by J.R.R. Tolkien.
Obscure? Was it
It's a very
Father
obscure
Christmas?
book. No, I think it's called The Fellowship of the Ring.
Okay.
That I really enjoyed. Again, for the 1,000th time.
Did you read any classics that you hadn't read before?
Not this year. Not like classic fiction, no.
Okay.
I'm trying to think.
If you kept track of books.
I was reading and listening to so much history and politics that it was all heavy like brain reading that I did not want to wade through any Russian literature this year. And also Russian literature makes me sad. You know?
Yeah, some of it. Most of what I've read is sad, yes.
Yeah, and here's the thing. I don't like to be sad.
Ben told me to read, I'm halfway through it. We were talking about the theme of domesticity in novels. And he was like, oh, you'd love The Brothers Karamazov. So I'm going into that thinking, have you read that one?
Mm-mm.
Thinking like domesticity, embroidery, cooking.
Nope.
I'm like, no, this is like domestic family drama.
Yeah, like people fighting.
So anyways, I'm making my way through that
one. Okay, wait.
still.
So what was your favorite fiction, though? I don't think
my
we've
favorite
heard yet.
fiction so far the year's over. My favorite fiction was Kristen Lavren's Daughter.
I knew it. Which, by the way,
definitely the best book I've read in my entire life so far.
People who are looking that up, it's not like Kristen Lavren's Daughter. That's not how you spell it. I tried to look it up that way.
We said this many times.
I'm just clarifying for the listeners here.
Okay, I will spell it.
Please spell the whole thing.
Kristen, Kristin.
Okay.
Lavren's Daughter, a second word. Lavransdatter.
It literally means
father's name, daughter of Lavrin. Lavren's Daughter.
So ironically, it sounds like it means what it sounds like
Correct.
it is, but it's not spelled that way. What do you like about Kristen Lavren's Daughter? What you've talked about a lot. It clearly connected with you. Why do you think it's such a great work?
It highlights, I can't think of another book that highlights so many seasons in a woman's life, because it's really from her childhood, because she got married so young, all the way to the end of her life. And I will just tell you outright, because you figured out really quick, she married a fool. So it's not like she had the best of lives, but that was the best part of it all, was like just seeing God really did redeem it at the end, not because of her good works, but because his love is what keeps us. So there was just so much, because it was like failure after failure after failure. I felt like it was one of the most realistic books I've ever read. And she had a whole bunch of boys, which was also just a helpful theme to read a novel around, you know?
Yeah.
It was so good. It was so good. I loved it. Oh, it was also, there was a lot of interesting stuff in it, like medieval history, a lot of themes you guys talk about actually in Haunted Cosmos, that it was cool to see the, like, oh, that's actually what it was like in a culture that believed that.
Yeah.
She commits the sin of witchcraft at one point. There's
Kristen
changelings.
Lavern's daughter?
Yes.
She's a witch?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's
What?
so good because it like contrasts. There's adultery in it in some cases. She doesn't ever commit adultery. I don't remember. But there's like the very real reality of the man she was supposed to marry, who was honorable and protected her when she basically cheated on him as a young girl, ends up marrying her little sister. And he still like protects her through the entire thing. And it's just like so heart-wrenching of like, oh my gosh, you made the worst, like one of the worst decisions you can make in life is marrying a fool. And yet this man who never is unfaithful to his wife, your sister, he is still very honorable towards you though, and is still very protective of you and clearly still loves you, but he's not going to act on it because he's an honorable man. And so it's just so heart-wrenching the whole time because you're just like, oh, your life for like one moment because you thought this guy was cute. You gave it all away. Oops. So it's just really good. It's so good.
Man.
It's really good. You'd like it. And then I read, I'm halfway through her other trilogy. The Master of Hestviken, I think is what it's called. I've only fully read the first one, which is called The Axe. But I had that one recommended to me because people said that one was really interesting on understanding church laws in church history, which it's true that it's been fascinating for that.
What period is Kristen Lavern's daughter?
I think it's like the 1200s.
Wow. Okay. Earlier than I thought.
Yes. Yeah. So anyways, I just loved that
awesome
book.
Did you have any runners up or any like other strong contenders?
Definitely Anna Karenina, probably.
Okay.
Yes.
Did it make you sad?
No. I mean, there's sad parts, but it didn't make me sad. No. Okay. I think it was just because there was too much overt adultery for me to be sad. I was more ticked off the whole time.
Oh, okay. I see.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe I was so mad at her because she was a woman, like the same way I felt about Scarlett. Like maybe if it was a man, I would be a little more nice.
In Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, I was so mad the whole time because I'm like,
because she's
just
so dumb.
act like a lady, please.
Yeah,
both of them. I was mad at both of them.
It's so funny.
I just really loved that book because it does a good job of showing like contrasting two different women and what one that chooses what seems like a boring, meaningless life of raising a family and just being a faithful wife, even though your husband's a turd, with a woman who gets whatever she wants with whoever she wants, whenever she wants, and literally, ruins herself. So
what kind of age would you say could read that book profitably?
I would definitely say teenager because there's nothing explicit in it.
I wouldn't have thought so.
No, there's nothing explicit in it. And I do think it would be actually a good theme. And I had one of my really good friends, she was doing a road trip this summer with her girls, which she has a teenager. I think their next oldest is like maybe 12. And I said, I would listen to Gone with the Wind with them. And she did. And she was like, yeah, there was good conversations from that.
Yeah.
So
yeah, it shows a lot of archetypal sins of men and women.
And I think for me, being so far on the other side of motherhood and marriage at this point, far enough along to like understand the temptations of women, it's so good. I could see maybe a wife, I don't know. I think it would definitely still be profitable though, as a warning of like, don't do this. This is a very real category of women in a very real consequence that follows you around for life.
Yeah.
Don't do it. I did want to say, most people say Russian literature feels daunting because of the character lists and all that stuff. I've read a couple Tolstoy, and like I said, I'm only partway through the Brothers Karamazov, but I feel like Tolstoy is the easier of the two to understand when it comes to remembering who is who. So maybe start with a Tolstoy.
Yeah.
Have you read any Tolstoy? Would you?
Yes, I have, but I'm trying to remember. It's been a while, like I'm talking about school.
Did you read
like in
War and
school.
Peace?
I tried to read War and Peace and got significantly through it and then gave
Okay.
up. That was in 7th grade.
You would read that. 7th
Yeah,
grade?
and it was just because I heard it was the hardest book to read and I wanted to prove that I could, and then I turned out I couldn't.
But you have
I haven't
read
attempted it since then.
Dostoevsky.
Yeah, Crime and Punishment.
Did you have a hard time keeping track of?
No, not at all.
Okay.
No, Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment is an easy book to follow in terms of what's happening. It's not intimidating from a complexity level.
Okay.
Like some of the, from what I've heard, especially Tolstoy, though, War and Peace is like that. The first 50 pages are just meeting like 700 people.
Okay.
That might appear one other time.
So
the advice I got was to
doesn't
keep a list.
hold across the board then.
Like every time you read a
Yeah.
new character with Tolstoy, with War and Peace specifically,
Write down
take a
who it
note,
is.
write down who it is in a 1-sentence summary.
Not my edition, but the edition of Anna Karenina that I had in high school had that at the front for you already.
Yeah, that would be very handy. Seriously, very handy.
Okay.
Yeah, so that was some fiction.
Yes, fiction. Did you have a favorite nonfiction?
This one, it's so hard to narrow down that I just have a bunch that I'd want to mention.
Okay.
One of them, I'm not quite done with it. So according to your rules, it doesn't count, but I don't recognize your rules. So
all right.
they're not in the Bible.
Going.
It doesn't say that.
Keep going.
And that is The Death of the West, Pat Buchanan.
Okay.
Or Patrick J. Buchanan. Its subtitle is How Dying Populations and Immigrant Invasions Imperil Our Country and Civilization. And it talks about birth rate issues in America and the West in general. It talks about immigration and some of the threats that these issues basically are to Western civilization, American civilization, Europe, England, and it was written in 2002. It was published in 2002. Super sad book, but also very prescient. He saw many things ahead. There are very few things in the book so far that I've thought he wasn't quite right about that here in 2025.
Interesting.
Or 2024 when I started it. A few of the differences are actually just some of the other countries that he lists, like China, also beginning to have extreme, like birth rate issues as well. So it's very thought-provoking work, and it also will just show you the way in which America has been demoralized to hate itself and see to its own destruction and its own conquering at the hands of foreign cultures. Basically, it is the abandonment of their Christian virtue and their Christian self-identity and all the things that came with that, like having children, loving your country, loving your people.
Ironically, it doesn't look like he had any children.
Buchanan?
Yeah.
This was right after his presidential run, which it would have been better if he'd won. So a lot of, if you're lost with Buchanan, a lot of the ideas that are currently ascendant in the right with Trump and some of the related figures surrounding Trump are very much Buchanan-esque ideas. J.D. Vance is a very Buchanan-esque.
So did he write that book you read, The Unnecessary War?
Yeah, he wrote Hitler and the Unnecessary War, which is a great book as well.
I thought that was an older book. I didn't realize it was as new as it is.
Yeah, it's fairly new. And Buchanan, he basically lost. So the Buchanan old right conservatism basically lost to the neoconservative movement that would include people like the Bushes, all the way through our president.
So you wouldn't consider him as part of the post-war consensus type?
I mean, he in the sense that the whole culture is shaped by the post-war consensus.
Yeah.
There are aspects of it that are just like the air we breathe. But he was a guy that would definitely fight against aspects of the post-war consensus.
Okay.
He's part of the old right.
But was he willing to say people like the Bushes were? Was he calling?
He would criticize them, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
that's more my question.
He would criticize them. Another book that was related to that one.
Hey, did you hear what I said though?
Oh wait,
it doesn't sound like Pat Buchanan had any children. Oh
yeah, I'm not aware of his personal life on that level.
I'm just surprised. Go ahead. Yeah. Sorry.
Some of the related books that were a lot of the books I read were political and like historical. I also read The Unprotected Class by Jeremy Carl. Subtitles How Anti-White Racism is Tearing America Apart. This is a great book. Everybody should read. Jeremy Carl's doing really good work in some of these areas. He's another guy right now that is.
He's alive.
Yeah, he's alive. He's not. He's like a young guy. I'm assuming he's late 30s, early 40s. Could be wrong. We follow each other on Twitter. So Jeremy, if you're listening to this,
what
you
did
definitely
you say
aren't.
his name is? Jeremy Carl?
Jeremy Carl. Yeah, so he talks about essentially the woke and anti-white DEI policies, essentially formal anti-white racism, institutionalized white self-hatred that is destroying industries in our country. Some of the examples he gives in the book would be like in the medical industry, where DEI and affirmative action in elite medical schools, this is true of law schools as well, are essentially aiming to eliminate most objective standards that are required
so scary
for entrance for non-whites and across the board, but for the purpose of disproportionately admitting non-whites into the most elite medical and legal schools and all sorts of higher education for the purpose of meeting racist quotas that are racist against whites and Asians as well, but whites in particular. And he points at some of the devastating consequences of this and just looking at the long-term picture of what that does to a culture.
Yeah, that's horrible.
When you destroy the meritocracy and also when you through self-hate indoctrinate self-hatred in a people, such that they actually hate themselves and their forefathers, and they think they come from evil people, and that they are inherently evil, and oversee the dismantling of their own civilization. That's what we're seeing currently in America. So this is, in my estimation, one of the most important political issues of our day. It is in dismantling these ideas and combating them head on. This is one of those things that you have to be willing to be called a racist, because it's the first thing that you're going to hear if you say.
Where did you find this book?
I read it before. I'm pretty sure I just saw it on Twitter and picked it up. And
okay.
I actually listened to this one while I was prepping our house.
I know. I remember when you were.
So in this period, I listened while I was painting our old. We were renting out our house, the house we lived in before we moved. And I listened to this book. I listened to Bad Therapy by Abigail Schreier. I listened to Boomers by Helen Andrews, and
while
a couple other
that?
books. Yeah,
those are
vein.
a good trio there too.
And Jeremy Carl's was my favorite of those. I thought it was the most important. If I could pick one, I would say this is one of the most important books that just normal Americans should read, and they'll immediately recognize the truth of the thesis, and they'll suddenly go, "Oh, that's what I've been seeing everywhere ascendant for the last 20 years."
I said on my annotated list that I'm going to put on our Patreon page, I said that every American parent should be reading Bad Therapy.
Yes.
Because you don't know what sort of situation your child is going to end up in.
Yep. 100% agree. That was on my top list. So tell us more about that book.
She's just kind of I guess you could say her thesis of the book is that people are naturally resilient emotionally and physically. And so since we live in a culture that has psychologized so much stuff to make us feel like we're actually weak unless we, get talk therapy done or, ruminate on our emotions a lot, we're never going to overcome our problems, which has actually created more and more and more and more problems.
Social emotional learning, gentle parenting.
Yeah. And she kind of tackles this since a lot of this really started with Obama. Some of the stuff he put into action, I guess you could say, on a college level that then trickled down to the schools. And I think what was most eye-opening to me was many of the examples she gave were in Utah.
Yeah,
it was shocking.
Disproportionate number of them were in Utah.
So that was helpful. I mean, there was some stuff we were trying to figure out as parents this past year that book was really pertinent to thinking through, is this a necessary treatment? Is this not?
It's also helpful with the school.
Yeah. This has been very, very helpful in me counseling other parents for sure.
Yeah, it's been helpful in our school in just thinking through, medicating children.
And the book
is devastating to this vein of psychological and psychotherapeutic and psychiatric development, it demonstrates, Schreier, she just shows that in basically every measurable way, generations coming up since we made these shifts have been devastated by them. That they're absolutely in every measurable way less healthy mentally and emotionally than previous generations.
She had an entire chapter in there too, right? On how the body keeps the score was a scam.
Oh yeah. It was so good.
In court. I mean,
yeah, basically
it's devastating.
trauma farming. Like this whole vein of talk therapeutic counseling that's like, we need to talk about your trauma and get to the roots of your trauma and understand that your trauma has been encoded into your biology. It's been encoded into your body, and now it shapes everything that you do. I'm actually looking at it right now on our shelf.
Which I think there's a Christian case to be made that our emotions affect our physiology. We're not saying that doesn't exist, but you have to realize people are getting paid off of keeping you feeling like you are emotionally fragile.
Yeah, and the evidence just simply doesn't show that focusing on your trauma
is what heals it.
Fixes anything. No, in fact, it's quite the contrary.
Yes.
Focusing on your trauma and your emotional well-being and your emotional state and a constant introspection is, and rumination is what it's the word that she used in the book, word Lexy just used. Ruminating on your issues traps people in anxiety. It basically ensnares you in these exact psychological problems that are overwhelming populations of young people in particular, but beyond as well. This cold and flu season, fortify your defenses naturally with the Kings Ridge elderberry syrup and elderberry products. They grow the freshest elderberries on their Indiana farm, cold press them into the tastiest syrup around. Their products are packed with antioxidants and vitamins to boost your immune system. Use code Bright Hearth, all caps, Bright Hearth, for 10% off your first order at tkrfarm.com. The Kings Ridge elderberry syrup. Taste the difference, help push back the curse. That's tkrfarm.com. Here at Bright Hearth, we love to support Christian family businesses that are doing great work, which is why we're so happy to commend to you A Well-Worn Story. A Well-Worn Story is a sewing studio based in New Glarus, Wisconsin, and they're making handcrafted leather and canvas goods. It's run by a husband and wife team, and they focus on making beautiful products from natural, high-quality materials that only get better with age, telling your unique story. Made in rural America, this Christian family business makes high-quality handcrafted leather and canvas bags, belts, and wallets, and these are heirloom quality, stuff that you can hand down to your next generation. You can order online at www.awellwornstory.com and use the discount code BRIGHTHEARTH, all caps, no spaces, to save 10% on any order. Here at Bright Hearth, we're all about helping you not turn into a girl if you're a boy, or into a boy if you're a girl. You know what might be doing that to you? The soap in your shower. And so we are pleased to introduce you to IndigoSundrySoap.com, link in the description, of course, who can provide you with soaps and more without any of the nasty stuff. And because they love you, they're giving you a discount code, guys. So use code, all caps, Bright Hearth, for 10% off your whole order. Support this great Christian company and support Bright Hearth Podcast at the same time. Check them out at IndigoSundrySoap.com. And of course, that link is in the description.
I mean, you could see how this could be totally used against somebody. Like, say you're an adult that goes to, like, the VA pays for PTSD counseling, okay? If you're an active duty military member, you get in there, you feel worse after one session, imagine that. And then you pick up a book like this and you're like, wait a second. Maybe the science actually doesn't show that this type of counseling is going to help what I've experienced in the past. Yeah. So you tell them, I don't actually need this anymore. I think I'm going to be okay without it. And then your counselor suddenly says, well, you're you're just repressing these emotions. They're just going to come back later. They're going to call you crazy. They're going to say your spouse is making you do this. Somebody's making you feel bad about coming here. Like you can see how it's just like this nasty spiral downward, which is why I think it's important for everybody to read a book like this today before they find themselves in circumstances like that.
Yeah.
So anyways,
did you read Boomers?
No, you told me about it.
It's like the men and women who promised freedom and delivered something like devastation. It goes through influential boomers like Steve Jobs, Camille Paglia, Al Sharpton, Sonia Sotomayor, some of these key figures in the boomer generation. This one was less, it wasn't a top, but I thought it was interesting.
Yeah, I could see
and
that
it
being
showed
interesting.
It was really interesting to listen to this book, Bad Therapy, in the Unprotected Class. And I also listened to The Age of Entitlement and some Buchanan.
Who wrote The Age of Entitlement?
Christopher Caldwell. Super good.
Okay.
Right. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. I might be getting it. I'm pretty sure that was Christopher Caldwell. That's actually not my favorite. I just remember what my favorite one was, though.
What was
it was Caldwell. My favorite one was R.R. Reno's Return to the Strong Gods.
Oh, okay.
That was a linchpin.
Really?
Yeah, I really liked it. I thought it was helpful. He's the one who brought the post-war consensus terminology to the forefront some years ago in the ways that we're using it recently.
Did he coin that term?
I know he didn't
coin it. I didn't pick up on that when I read it.
I mean, the post-war consensus had been used in other ways economically, especially in England. But,
okay.
I'm not sure if that was original. I'm pretty sure it was, but I don't want to be totally confident because I'm not.
Okay.
But Age of Entitlement's about America since the 60s, and I've been reading a lot of books that are books that basically are trying to answer the question, where are we today? Why are we here?
Mm-hmm.
How do we get here? Like, what is the state of our psychological, financial, political well-being, or,
Yeah, and that's important because these are the times we're actually living in.
Yeah.
So
that's what I've been trying to do in this year.
Good.
Is really work to understand some of that stuff.
I read Renault because you told me to.
Yeah, what did you think of it?
That was my second to last. I listened to it, so I'm wondering if it would have been a little bit different if I had read it. It wasn't that long to listen to, though. It was like 6 hours or something. I found it helpful. It definitely isn't a standalone book, in my opinion. It left me with more questions than anything else, and I felt like it was the book that I read that gave me the most questions for you of like, let me make sure I'm understanding this correctly. A lot of it wasn't new. It's interesting because I grew up in a military family. A lot of the stuff he was saying, I'm like, this is what I heard growing up in my family. So that wasn't new information for me, but I guess I wish he would have answered more of the now what sort of a thing.
Yeah, that wasn't the point of the book.
And I know that wasn't the point of the book,
but you're right.
But I did walk away. I mean, I asked you even in the midst of other books that you're having me read, like, so what does this have to do with me doing dishes in the morning? Like,
right.
And I don't usually feel that way, but I definitely did feel that way reading this book, which you helped me think through that. So it wasn't like, it was still very profitable, but I'm really thankful I'm post-mill too, because I could see somebody reading a book like that just being like, I guess blackpilling is the term.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I'm glad I read it. It wasn't a favorite read because it's not fun.
Yeah.
It's like, this kind of stinks.
Yep. I also listened to Hillbilly Elegy this year, which I thought was interesting because of Vance.
I'd like to listen to that.
And he reads it himself. The book the version I listened to. That was really just interesting. I mean,
I've heard really good things about it from lots of people over the years.
Yeah, I thought it was super interesting. It gave a window into like the Appalachian, the white poverty, and like some of the issues of, he critiques his own culture and people as much as he does the system. So he doesn't it's not a book where he goes and blames everything on the system.
He's not sugarcoating.
No, in any direction, which I thought was interesting. He was hard on government. And one thing he recognized in the book, if memory serves, is just that people basically want to look at like white poverty in the Appalachian world, for example, and it could be any other issue or group of people that have some sort of cultural issue. And he recognizes that the problem is not going to be solved by merely opening some sort of government spending program. It's just not going to be fixed by saying...
Even before he was a politician, he recognized
he recognized this, that there were actually cultural breakdowns. Now, he does tie them to political policy and outsourcing and removal of manufacturing jobs and the gutting of these communities that were very much political issues as well. And he was correct about a lot of that stuff. But he points out that the solutions are also going to need to be found in the people themselves reclaiming a properly ordered love for their own people, their own place, for their own culture. It's another reason I like Jeremy Carl's book, because a lot of the themes have been people learning to like accept the destruction of their own folkways and customs and culture and peoples and the only thing that will really fix it, and it wouldn't fix it by itself, but it would be a good start, is the recovery of the will to act politically and culturally in your own interest, in the interest of your own peoples. That's
interesting considering what actually happened in Appalachia in the fall with the
absolutely
hurricane and stuff. So.
No, it was interesting because I'd finished it not long before that happened, and I was thinking the same thing.
So my favorite nonfiction was actually A Pattern Language.
Oh, yeah.
I finally finished it. I finished the first two in his trilogy. It took me 3 years to read the first two. I finished Timeless Way of Building last year and then Pattern Language this year. And I loved it.
Who was the author?
Christopher Alexander. Definitely one of the most helpful books on referencing like how you would want to design your home. What are rooms for? What are the small nooks in your home for? It is what it sounds like. It's like tiny chapters that are just different patterns of different places in your home.
What is a pattern?
A pattern for a window seat. A pattern for a built-in bookshelf. And it's not necessarily it's not like a how to build this. It's more of a why would you build this and what does it psychologically do for you as a human being to have this in your home.
You talked about, I remember as you were reading that, you talked about the pattern for an entryway. And how people, when they exit a building, they feel safe if there is some sort of thing over their head. If there's a transition that brings them from inside to outside. And it was interesting because you start to notice why certain buildings are wrong.
You think about our back door. There's an entire outdoor room provided before you have to actually go out into the elements.
Yeah. And that helps you. But if you don't have that, it makes you start to realize, oh, the reason this piece of architecture, this building that I was just in is wrong and it doesn't feel right and I don't like it. It doesn't feel made for me.
Yeah.
Is that they fail and they fail to follow some of these patterns. Yes. So they're disruptive to human tradition. And these human traditions that have developed over a long period of time as people figure these same things out in different cultures and different places and times.
Yeah, and a timeless way of building is kind of the case throughout history of like, this is the timeless way of doing things. This is the way cultures have done it. This is why we use these materials so humans could manipulate it at will without needing a professional at low cost. So everybody had access to this type of architecture. And then the second part is like, okay, so what are the actual patterns to get there?
Is an example of that like even brick masonry? Because it's kind of manipulable. People can learn how to build things with bricks or add an addition or change a fireplace. Some of these materials that are human.
He would definitely say that anything that requires maintenance. So that's why steel is kind of steel doesn't require maintenance. Brick, I don't remember the exact materials, but I remember him saying, he was looking at other cultures around the world too. So he was giving examples, not necessarily always in America, but like, can you go and manipulate your own wall right now with your own hands if you wanted to? If not, it's probably not a good pattern. So it's interesting. Then you get like city involved. And and that's what was interesting was the first part of the book was all city planning and community planning and neighborhood planning.
Yeah.
And an example of a pattern for that would have been like trying to think of like benches. Are there benches in your city for people to sit around? Are there natural waterways for children to play in? Are there green belts? I think one of the patterns is literally birthplaces.
Interesting.
Just and then you start to see like, oh yeah, when you think of the beautiful details in all of these areas across a culture, it just creates a more beautiful culture.
Yeah.
It just is how it is. So that was my favorite one that I read this year. I loved it.
That makes total sense that you would connect with that one.
Yeah.
Especially in our home search and
I had started it I think the January before. So I had been reading it like a whole year before we started looking for a house, but it was very helpful. I mean, I made that list that I said I prayed through, like, no, these are the patterns I'm not willing to settle on anymore. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it was really good. So 2 more. Did you have like a favorite Christian book this year? Like a favorite overtly Christian book that you read?
Man, there was this book, Haunted Cosmo. I'm just kidding. Doing your duty in the world, it's not just stuff. I just read so much history, political.
That's okay.
Stuff this
figured
year
you might not have read something along these lines.
I liked Dr. Rigney's book on leadership and emotional sabotage.
Oh, did you read that one?
I read that one. Very short.
I've heard it's really good.
But this wasn't a year of. Even that one is not really like a theological work so much as it is a leadership work.
Yeah.
That kind of thing. What about you? Did you read any?
Yes, I did. I am holier than you, so of course I did.
You know what? Let me just pick one of the commentaries. I'll just say it was one of my preaching commentaries.
My favorite one was definitely The Secret Key of Heaven by Thomas Brooks. It was a Puritan book on just really, really. I read multiple Puritan books on prayer this year, and that one was hands down the most practical. Like, here is how to do it.
Yeah.
Are you on your knees yet? Okay. Get on your knees first.
Okay, then I remember this, the meekness book.
Oh, okay.
I read it in the course of doing counseling.
Okay, yeah. I reread that one this year too.
Made notes for people with it, but it was, it's such a great book.
It's such a good book.
I think
that's why I reread it this year.
Yeah,
it's a good book.
What is it called? It's Matthew Henry, and it's like on.
Oh my gosh!
It's a classic long book, but I just call it the meekness book. It's one I hope to reprint.
Technically, a quest for
meekness and quietness of spirit.
There you go.
Yes, I want to reprint it because the only existing version of it is kind of a lower quality paperback version. So maybe New Christian Press will make a new edition of it at some point. But it is a great practical book. It's on. Like, women benefit from it, I think, a lot because it's directed towards the passage in 1 Peter 3.
I found it as a free PDF originally. That's how I read it.
Yeah, you can, and you can find it in that format still. But it's just really good on understanding meekness. Mm-hmm. And there's fruit there for everybody.
How to control your tongue.
Yeah, self-control.
How to be slower to anger.
Yep.
How to, just let things go.
Yeah.
How to not care so much. How to make yourself more comfortable in hard circumstances. It's really good. Yeah.
And there's a book that we're working on that is in editing and kind of like final phases right now before it goes to the main editor that Lexy wrote, and it is on communication, like communicating respectfully, talking to your husband, basically communication of a wife particularly.
There is a chapter on that book, isn't there? Is that why you're saying
that? Yeah, that's why it came to mind because it's your book looks at many of the same themes, but without the Puritan density, without the older style density.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, I guess.
So we'll keep you guys in the loop. I don't think we've actually said that yet, but we'll keep you guys in the loop when that is.
No, I didn't even know you were doing that until you said it like 2 weeks ago. So.
Yeah, I've been doing a read through of it right now, and I'll be writing a foreword at the least for it, and I might write a chapter or two related to the subject that would be a few chapters I think could be in there, but aren't chapters Lexy could write because they're not like a wife. But I think it's going to be, well, I'm reading it.
Yeah,
it's
that's
very
definitely a book written to women.
It's written to women. It's a Titus 2 book. That's what it is. Let me talk about, Titus 2 says, older women teach the younger women to be lovers of your husband and your children. And this book is in that vein. Mm-hmm. So I think Bright Hearth listeners particularly will love and benefit from the book.
It's literally just about how to communicate with your husband.
It's super.
How to talk to your husband.
It's honestly one of my favorite books I've read, but I didn't finish it in 2024, so I can't. That'd be cheating.
That's so
I
sweet.
included
Babe.
it.
Okay. So my last question is,
Okay.
Did you set any goals moving forward?
I did.
Oh, you did? Okay.
It's a very simple goal, and that is just
That's
to
good.
read, like not just read, like actually paper book read.
Oh.
Like 20 pages a day.
Really?
That's it.
Paper book.
Yeah, just
okay.
I listen to a lot of books because
Oh, I see what you're saying. Okay.
when I'm at work, I have no time I don't read a lot at work unless I'm doing like sermon preparation, and then it's reading very focused, specific things. But most of my work is not passive; it's mentally active. So that means that when I'm resting, I like working out or going on a walk, which I try to do most days. I listen to books, and that's when I listen to things that I'm interested in, that aren't work, that I want to learn more about a subject. So this year I wanted to just work through some books, a lot of the paleo-conservative literature. I'm continuing in that vein in trying to mine down more into that world. And then also there's a systematic theology, but that's very slow.
What is it?
It's Bavinck.
Are you reading it at work or where?
Yeah, a little bit at a time, but that's slow.
Did you get is it Reformed Dogmatics? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I have a good set of it at work.
Do you have Ben's set? Or did you get
the
a set?
The leather one?
I don't know. Did you get a set is what I mean.
Yeah, I did.
You get a
Here,
physical
I'll show
set?
it to you.
Just because, what am I reading? After, I'm reading a Bavinck also. God's Wonderful Works, I think is what it's called.
Oh, The Wonderful Works of God.
Yeah.
It's like a concise.
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Is that, okay.
I'm reading this one, which is 4 volumes.
I have that on my 40 before 40 list, Reformed Dogmatics.
It's a super nice edition. It's a leather edition.
I didn't know you had that. You must have just gotten it.
I got it just like 2 months ago.
I will say I'm 9 pages away from finishing Haunted Cosmos. It is very good. It is very interesting because, I mean, aside from the discarded image, I can't think of another book that covers these topics, at least that I'm aware of. But what I was going to say is my favorite footnotes throughout that entire book are from the Reformed Dogmatics.
Yep.
So that was part of, well, I already had it on my 40 before 40 list, but then I was like, no, I really need to read that. So I'm reading his other one. I'm doing Misty's book group this year. She has her sistership program, which you can join, and then join her yearly book group. And so we're doing that at a local level, I guess you could say, with our Voxer group. So that's the theology book.
Nice.
Misty's a big fan of Bavinck. So I have his book on Christianity and Science also. There it is. It's a nice blue copy. See it? That thin one. So pretty. Right beside Honor Thy Fathers. See it? It's a nice one.
Oh, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Nice.
So
we have 3 copies of Honor Thy Fathers on that shelf, so I was trying to find which one.
What? Oh,
yeah.
you do?
So I was trying to find which one is it?
Okay. That's okay. So read 20 pages in a physical print book. That's a good
Yeah,
goal.
it's very basic. I just want to read 20
No, I
pages
think
a day.
those are good goals because usually those you can
And if I get 10
low standards,
someday,
remember?
and I miss a day,
The thing is, it's not
okay.
a low standard though, because you get you're plotting, so you get through stuff quickly.
That's a pace to read 40 to 50 books.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah. So it's
Being consistent with it.
I've done many years of over 100. I've done 1 year of over 200, and then most years are between. Most years outside of those are 30 to 50.
This was a very low year for me.
We had a lot going on.
And like when I looked at my list yesterday, there were a couple books that I was like, I don't even know what that is. It must have been first trimester. I blacked out.
I don't even remember it. Yeah.
But that's why, because this was one of the more sick years of my life. Yep. So there you go. So that's your goal.
What about you?
I am my pace for 40 before 40 was 5 to 6 books a year. I thought most of the classics I read last year was on my list. Turns out only one of them was. So instead of 5 to 6 books, I got 1 book last year.
Nice.
So I'm just like sticking. Actually, that's why I pulled all of these out, is because these were books on my list that I needed to get through, that I hope to get through.
Yeah.
But I'm kind of telling myself there's some audio podcasts in a birth class that I need to take before the baby is born. So I'm giving myself like that wiggle room of, I know this is going to start postpartum for me. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, those books for me this year, it's going to look like some Esselin rereads, some Schaefer rereads. I pulled out East of Eden. I think that's it. Just like trying to get through some more of those books aside from what I'm reading. With Misty, I'm reading Thomas Sowell's Basic Economics, which is like 600 pages. Bleak House, which is on my 40 before 40. That's part of why I decided to do her group, is because the authors or the books were on my 40 before 40 list.
Oh, okay.
Paul Johnson, Modern Times.
Noise.
Bleak House, Bavinck, and Thomas Sowell. I think that's it. Oh, and we're reading one on liberal arts. I can't remember what it's called. Marion someone.
Very good.
Yes. So,
excellent.
Yeah, that's it. Finding a reading group is helpful to stay accountable to, read them. So
Sweet.
I think that's it.
All right.
People, we got to go read our books now.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Yeah, it's time. It's now 7:21. So
the kids in bed.
All right, everybody. Thanks for listening in on this episode of Bright Hearth. Let us know on the Twitters and Facebook and everywhere else what you're reading this year. If there's a book that you think we should absolutely add to our list, we would love to hear it. And hope you guys have a great 2025. I mean, you're 20 days into it at this point on the day this drops, but
hey, we're like less than 72 hours in though, and it's been weird already.
It has. And also there's a chance that by the time this comes out, like, who knows what will have happened. Like, it's 17 days
because
from now,
the inauguration will have happened.
I mean, I feel like we're in a time of like everybody's going.
I already don't go out in public very often.
I hope nothing happens.
But after the headlines this morning, I'm like, yeah, it's going to be even more reclusive in 2025.
Yeah. All right, guys. Well, Lord bless you. We'll catch you next time on Bright Hearth.